bit strange standing right in the middle, but as my friend Divan has said, for technical reasons, I have to kind of stand here. I would be happy to have stood somewhere on the side and not felt so much like in the eye of the storm. I'm really delighted to be back here to Chandigarh. So happy that I'm not organizing anything. And I'm so happy that it's my friend Divan, who for the last couple of months has been doing the most fabulous work for the Chandigarh Lalit Kala Akademi and is infusing great energy and a freshness of approach in showcasing talent and an exchange of ideas. I do feel a bit emotional today, yes, for sure, because this week I literally pack up home from a city where I came more than 27 years ago. I came here in the summer of 1981, and it was here that my journey with art history started. I began my second MA with art history, and there was no looking back since then. I was with the media in a very different world, and sometimes we have different lives, and a new life started for me here, which I in the beginning found a bit difficult to come to terms with, because I had grown up in the metropolitan cities of Delhi and Mumbai and came to Chandigarh, which in those days it was said was full of grey beards and old homes. Today it's a thriving city. There are no charming roundabouts left, but a great energy which can be seen from here. Lots of wonderful things happen from Chandigarh, and the presence of Chandigarh is felt in all the metropolitan cities, not just here but even within the diasporic community. I feel sentimental for a number of reasons, because when you shut home, it's not that the link is broken, but there definitely is a deep sadness that, you know, there's no home really here, but I know that a lot of my friends are here, and as they live in my hearts, I will live in theirs. I also want to take this occasion to really thank my professor, Professor D.C. Bhattacharya, and it was with Dr. Bhattacharya that my journey into Indian aesthetics started in a wonderful way. Outside of class, in the various conversations that I had while doing my PhD, it is there that I actually got gyan from my professor, and today as I leave the city, I want to put it on record and thank him from the bottom of my heart, because he taught me two very important things. Again, outside the class, he told me once, never lose intellectual honesty, and the second thing which he said was the rigor of scholarship. And I think I have tried to stick to those, and it has given me untold rewards. And today, as I stand here with a lot of laurels, when I was thinking and listening to what my student Prabdeep, who is now Dr. Barar, and makes me very happy to have a student who did her PhD under me. In fact, there are almost 3 generations. There's Dr. Bhattacharya, me, his student, I stand here, my student Prabdeep, and every bit of what has happened to me in Delhi started here in this city. This is the city which nurtured me, and when I went to Delhi, it is almost like Krishna, Sola Kalai Purna. I went to Delhi, which really helped me in every way to set up the visual arts gallery, to put air in my wings and fly to different parts of the world. And not for a moment do I forget my wonderful department of fine arts, which made me the person that I am today, and my professor, Dr. Bhattacharya, who gave me the golden mantra of reaching where I have reached. So thank you very much. I see a lot of my friends here. I see a lot of my old friends here, and I see some of my husband's bridge partners here who are also my friends, and it really makes me feel so happy that in these turbulent times, when we are all talking of the sadness which is happening in the world, that there is so much of warmth of relationships, and that is what is going to take us through. Now, the lecture which I thought it would be nice to talk of the ABC of art, because the book which I did, which is going to be launched later this evening, which is a collector's handbook, happened actually as a result of this great clamor for putting a commercial value to art. A couple of years ago, I stopped going for openings because everywhere I go, people from all walks of life would say, which painting should we buy? Do you think that is going to get us money, or this is going to get us money? And it just got me thinking that why is it that today in this global world, the whole thing, art, which for us was like puja, is being driven only by money. And that was a time when I thought that why should it not be a good opportunity to have a kind of a reader where the different aspects or the different disciplines of art could just be kind of put in one composite whole, and people could start looking at art which is being produced within the country and then deciding for themselves. So the whole concept of the ABC started there. But today when I talk of the ABC of art, I want to really talk about the aesthetics, the aesthetic value of art, the beauty of art, the aspects of collecting, why collect, and of buying. Now, a lot of this information you will get in the book which is there. So before I begin my lecture, I want to really start with this little sutra from the Upanishad, which says that from the knowledge of arts arises divine knowledge, and such knowledge leads to liberation. This liberation is truly the essence of the knowledge of arts. He who realizes this attains. And this is the quintessential celebration of the arts within the Indian context, because when we look at traditional art, we still think of pure ananda. Where does the ananda or the absolute supreme bliss rest? It rests in our chit, in our hearts. And this is something which is really not being followed when we look at what is happening in the West. When we see Damien Hirst's sharks cut up in stromal solutions, when you see performance art where people are looking at the body, where they are cutting the body, where they are looking and observing at bodily experiences, and the whole world is looking at conceptual art, and we think of India with our many-headed gods and our multi-armed goddesses and think, have we really lost it? But actually we haven't, because Indian art has always been a deeply conceptual art. We did lose it a little bit somewhere at the turn of modernism, because our educational institutions which were set up, very much the art institutions which were set up on the Kensington College of Art, they are continuing in the same way today, whereas the Kensington College of Art in the UK has gone far beyond. So we are actually stuck in a time warp, but now things are changing and changing rapidly within the country also. With globalization, everything is available at the click of a mouse. The Indian mind has always been a very inquiring mind, and knowledge has become global. So distance learning is one that, you can be in a lighthouse in the middle of an ocean, and yet with technology you can have the best of artistic practice at your doorstep. So today when we are looking at Indian art, it is an art which has captured the imagination of the world. Unfortunately for this recession, a lot of the Indian artists have had to take a little bit of a back seat, but I'm sure like all things recession will go too. But what is the reason why Indian art was gaining a deeper or a far-reaching success compared to Chinese art? because the Minjos and other art which is being sold for millions and millions of dollars suddenly was finding a very, very strong competitor with the Subodh Gupta's and Bharti Kher's art crossing millions of dollars, art being bought by international collectors, art being bought and put in museums across the world, contemporary Indian art, I'm not talking of the old masters. Now why did that happen? You know, one of the reasons of course is markets, but also the fact that the materiality which is available in India, the ideas which are there in India, the plural culture of India, the cultural diversity of India makes India the most fascinating choice, not only for getting inspiration but also in the production of art which is seen across the world. And for this I would just like to go to this great BAFTA winner of film, Slumdog Millionaire. Now with Slumdog Millionaire, which is now everybody is betting on the fact saying that it's going to win at least a couple of Oscars, and Arvind Adiga getting the Booker Prize, why is it that many Indians are also talking of the fact that, oh, they are selling the poverty of India? It's not, I mean, I'm not going into that debate here, but just saying that India has so many layers, and if you see both these films, you will go back to Naipaul when he wrote The Area of Darkness 40 years ago. So I would go back to the modernism of India with cinema and literature and come back to saying that the aesthetic value of Indian art has today found a place in the international market. Of course, there are various reasons. There's also the fact that a lot of foreign companies are coming and investing in India, and they want to invest in India also by buying art. So when Louis Vuitton set up its flagship store at the Champs-Élysées in 2002, the first exhibition which they did there was an Indian art exhibition. Why was that? Because the maximum number of profits that they were making surprisingly was being made after Japan in India. So they got a whole lot of these Indian artists to produce work which was with a made in India label, and this is what is happening to Indian art, which is gaining such popularity across continents and across geographies because it is a made in India label with a global cosmopolitan voice. Now what I thought is that I'll show you some images of painting, sculpture, new media and conceptual art. They have been picked from my book. Would you start that, Jitesh? They've been picked from the book, and obviously being trained as an art historian, I will definitely go through an art historical narrative, but I would like to show you some of these images because many people say, why is anybody buying this? हमें तो कुछ समझ आता ही नहीं है, ये squiggles कर दिए, चार चीजें उठा के लगा दी, what is the value to this? So I'll just start talking of the cultural production of art in modern and contemporary India, and then why collect? We'll just look at that, and how to collect. I'll also talk a little bit about that. So I'm beginning with one of the greatest styles in India, which are the Ajanta paintings, because this style in fact was very, very symptomatic of this whole concept of the canons of Indian art, where there was everything, measurements, how the head should be made, how long should the body be, what should the torso look like, what should the mudras be, do the mudras have a meaning. So traditional Indian art has always had myths, allegories and metaphors to them. And this is Ajanta, which all of us can immediately identify because the whole concept of absolute beauty is there. Next. I'm quickly jumping actually to really an artist who is a contemporary artist, Anjali Ila Menon. Jumping really because her art is also one of great figuration, where immediately again we can look at line, form, color, composition, because when we look at a painting, what are we taught? in a classroom. What makes a beautiful painting? Proportions, line, form, color, and how does the artist apply the color? So this is Anjali Ila Menon, who started really a new style. She studied at the Beaux-Arts in Paris, and she took off from where the old modernists left and started really painting on board, which nobody really was painting in this scale. Her scale changed and she started painting on board. Next please. Now I come to an artist who's older to her, also a living artist, Raza, who belonged to the early Bombay progressives, but today we really look at him as a contemporary artist. And why is his market so high? Because he can be understood by anybody in the world. Even in France where he stays, people adore him because they are not daunted by his work. For him it's the bindu, the shunya, from which he started, because that was the center of the world for him, and he has used color in an absolutely abstract manner, and his abstraction is based on traditional Indian philosophies. But the Western world is not daunted. They can understand abstraction the same way they can understand Piet Mondrian, who would probably be somebody, if we look at it in a very superficial manner, say, oh, he could also work like that. So therefore, the art which is appreciated by the foreigners is art which does not daunt them. They cannot understand a Dashabhuja Durga as easily as they would understand Raza's abstract works. Next. Now this is Arpita Singh. Another, since we are talking of collecting and buying, this is a word which people who love art would really want to slaughter me if I used it, but I would say she's a blue chip artist, an artist who is really breaking the norms of traditional Indian painting, and her thematics are her immediate environment. She's not going back to the ancient past and taking poetry or philosophy or religion. She's painting her surroundings, and this is really images which she sees all around, and she's called it the golden deer. Next. I have interspersed, actually, because I didn't want to kind of just make it 1, 2, 3, 4. I have in between shown you a Mughal miniature painting where you see registers, one register, second register, flatter, two-dimensional art, but something which you can immediately, the whole narrative of storytelling is there in this painting. Next. We next come to K.G. Subramaniam. He has not taken exactly from the miniature painting, but the style, the kind of a diptych which is done, one on top and one below, the whole aspect of storytelling is something which has continued particularly with the early modernists, because they go back, there is an unbroken tradition of painting in Indian art. Next. This is Abhinendranath Tagore, where the Tagore brothers, of course, were an institution and were people who really brought in a kind of an internationalism to this very regional area in India of Bengal, and of course they were all masters of watercolor on paper. Next. Satish Gujral, an artist who actually went to Mexico and also trained with Diego Rivera and brought in the concept of murals, and he was one artist who's also today an architect, a painter, a sculptor, very much to what the artist in traditional India or ancient India was, because our aesthetics of understanding art really comes from the 4th century text, the Natya Shastra, which is really a text on dramaturgy, but in that is embedded the rasa theory, which is basically developed for the performing arts, but it is in the ingestion of that rasa, when we look at traditional Indian art, that we experience Ananda. So there is Satish Gujral, who began by again taking a complete break with the kind of figuration that was done by the traditional Indian artists. But you can still see the tradition here of the figures as you would see in Ajanta or in what the Bengal masters were doing much earlier, a century ago. Next. This is Mona Rai, who is working really with materials. She lives in Delhi, and a lot of abstract work she does. She uses silver foil, she uses acrylic, she uses stones. So this is this new generation of artists who is actually exploring all the materials which are available to them and how they then transform those materials into a two-dimensional work of art. Next. Manjeet Bawa, who all of you know, and this is a similar image right here. This is of course the Shantiniketan triptych of Tayyab Mehta, which made great news because this was the one which had crossed the many crore figure in an auction by Tamarind Tree. Next. This is Bhupen Khakkar, whose works are also in the museum here. The first Indian artist who actually came out with his gayness, because even though homosexuality is very much accepted within our culture, philosophically, many people would also say Nawabi Shauq and things like that, but when it came down in a structured society, they were really beyond the pale. But Bhupen actually made it a point to come out with his gayness. He was a Sunday painter, but within the genre of painting, he actually started an absolutely new vocabulary of art in what we would say in the history of Indian modernism. Next. This is again K.G. Subramaniam's work, who's also still alive today, has gone back to living in Baroda. In India, this whole thing between Shantiniketan and Baroda, there's been a great kind of a relationship, and he taught in both these great universities and today lives in Baroda, and his language too comes from the language of traditional, almost primitivism, you know, of Indian art, the way he uses the figures, but the way he juxtaposes and does his compositions is in his singular voice. Next. Arpana Kaur. Next. This is an artist who lives in Mumbai. Many artists in the 70s and 80s started actually going abroad to study. Many went, of course, to the Beaux-Arts in Paris, but a lot of people went also to America. And like the artists who studied only in India, there were artists who studied in the West and came back to India. And equally important today is the diaspora, the artists of Indian origin who are living outside India but are also very, very important when we talk of this great canvas of Indian art. So this is Brinda Miller. She studied at Parsons, and the way she layers her work almost in an architectural design way is very different to the classical figurative painting which was being done in Mumbai by a lot of people and all the graduates from the J.J. College of Art. Next. This is Jagannath Panda, again a really big blue chip artist, and in fact he's from Orissa, and one of his earliest exhibitions was at the Punjab Lalit Kala almost 20 years ago when he came here as a young boy. Today his paintings sell for many crores. He studied at the Royal College after Orissa, and in this, what is really interesting in his work is the way he's juxtaposing urban landscapes with mythical imagery, and this is what really fascinates the white Western world, and you know, people are waiting in queues to buy his artwork. Next please. This is of course Jitish Kalat, another very intelligent young man who is from Kerala, and he really plays with the theory and plays with postmodernism a lot, and he has actually evolved his own style of painting. And in fact his work was I just saw it about not even a week ago at the Arco Fair, which was creating a lot of interest, where he had made a truck with almost which looked as if it was made of elephant teeth. Next. Justin Punmani, another artist who is actually using a lot of acrylic paint, car paint, and the paint which he uses is really with these oxide finishes. So he started a metallic kind of bringing in an industrialized material into the canvas. Next. This is Natraj Sharma from Baroda, and again an artist who is really very much in the blue chip category. I'll just finish this very quickly and then we can talk about what makes an artist a blue chip artist. Kanchan Chandar, who started really with teaching and then went for a kind of a workshop in the Crafts Museum and the Toast. Sujata Bajaj, an artist who lives in Paris and also is using colors, but in all her painting she has introduced calligraphy of the Devanagari script. Clever move, because that's what again the people in Europe immediately, the vibrancy of color, they'll think immediately, when they think of India, they think of color and then they think of vibrancy. But what really they cannot immediately relate to is figures. They cannot understand Rajasthani women, they'll say exotic India. But when they look at this kind of work, they'll say immediately they'll be able to identify with the abstraction. But the colors are different because the European artists will not use this color palette, and when they see calligraphy in between, they can again identify with it, so they start feeling comfortable with this kind of art. Next, Bhavani Katoch, who was from here. He is living in Paris, studied from the College of Art here, and again he is working in a way which is again very much understood by the West. If he goes there and starts making our Devi, Devatas, he will not be accepted. They will say primitivism and move on. Next. This is Suhasini Kejriwal, an artist who studied at Parsons, then at Goldsmith College. What makes her very interesting is she is using organic forms, using photo references. A lot of people are using photography today either as references or photography as an art form has come to stay. The way she applies paint, that is what makes it very, very interesting. Like mainly in a cone, she uses all the paint that has been applied there, has a great texture, very fine, as if it's a mehndi pattern right there. Next. This is Hema Upadhyay. This is from her thing called Bleeding Hearts. She has studied from Baroda, and what makes her work also very interesting is the material she uses and the combinations of materials she uses. In this she has used pastels, graphite and photographs on paper. Again, all her work has a lot of photographic references to it. Next. This is a young artist, in fact a student of mine called Raymond Chopra, and she's from the College of Art in Delhi. What she is doing again, if you see, are photo references, layering of work on canvas. She's using acrylic, she's using pens, and her work is something which can be made anywhere in the world. One cannot say that is she an Indian artist. She could be at home anywhere in the world. Next. This is another student of mine actually from the Delhi College of Art. She is using lacquer and she is using the printmaking techniques on painting. So when she says that this is a print, people, a lot of collectors wouldn't buy this. Oh, ye print hai, not realizing that she is using the printmaking techniques on her painting and creating a painting through a monoprinting process. Next. Seema Kohli is an artist who is in a way quite self-taught. That's why I'm kind of trying to show you really a range of artists, men, women of different ages. Seema Kohli is completely fascinated by this whole thing of the Hrana Garbha and the golden womb, and she's been exploring this and using washes of different kinds on her canvas, and her work is extremely layered and laborious, but it is always centering around the theme of the golden womb. This is another young artist, Simran Mehra Agarwal from the Delhi College of Art, And this particular work of hers, she's always kind of looked at architecture. So her work relates between architectural drawings and painting. So even if she's painting, say for example, a carriage driven by a horse, the horse has almost as if its insides are coming out. Literally the architecture of the animal is drawn by her, and she has initiated a brand new language as well. This is an artist called Sabah Hassan, who's again using, she's a Muslim artist, and she uses her own history and things from her neighborhood, aspects of Islamic calligraphy in the work, and her own personal experiences as a woman, as a Muslim woman, and her own thing with her own religious preoccupations. Next. This is, of course, the great reigning star these days, Riaz Komu. He's in every exhibition, every biennale, every documenta, and his great thing is the way he works with sculpture. It's not just the forms that he uses, it's the materials that he uses, it's the way he puts them together. His sculptures are almost like installations. Next. So I think we'll stop here, and with images, I'll just take another 5 minutes to talk about why collect and how to collect. Now this is a thing which many people keep asking me, that if this artist doesn't, if we want to sell it and it doesn't make money, should we buy it? Now of course I'm not going to tell anybody don't buy it. I would always say buy, but yes, the aspect of commerce is equally important because it takes a lot of hard work to earn money, and these days, in spite of the fact that Hussein has reduced his prices officially by 40%, and he says, I'm going to be like, the market is being driven like how Jeff Koons did it. Whenever there's a recession, he would reduce his prices. But the fact is, even if the prices are reduced, it is a lot of money which is spent to acquire a work of art, and a lot of the artist's soul goes into the artwork. So what is the best way to buy an artwork? Is that you must first see a lot of art. I mean, when you're going to make a collection, don't just start saying, oh, now I have X amount of money and let me start a collection. It is important that you look at a lot of work of art. It is very important to have that sense of history about the artist. It is important to see if the artist is a flash in the pan and is never going to work again. It doesn't matter, because there is a big show which is being done for the Pompidou Center in 2011, and I'm one of the advisory on that, and it was very interesting. We were having a meeting yesterday, and the two curators from the Pompidou Center said, oh, we found an artist, he's 81 years old, and nobody, there is no, he's not discovered, and he's, still living, but his work has not been noticed, so you never know. It depends how important, how significant, what is the politics of the artist, and how he has made a difference. Is there something novel and new about the artwork? So the most important thing which I would just in my humble way say is that train your own eye. If you don't have time to train your own eye and you have a huge corpus fund, then check it out and hire a good art consultant who can come and show you work. Always look at which collection the artist is in. Why do you think that artists want to give their works to important museums at institutional rates? I'm actually just helping set up a collection for a private museum in Austria, and I rang up Riaz, who doesn't have time. The minute he heard it's a museum, he says institutional rates. Now this is also equally important, because the artist understands if it's for a museum, it's not just the aesthetic value, it's the commercial value of the work which will go up. But for many young aspiring artists who I see here, let me say another thing. Do not think that if you are not a blue chip, never lose heart, because becoming a Subodh Gupta is not only that there is one Subodh Gupta, but we can say that there is one Subodh Gupta who happened to be at the right place at the right time. He happened to have the right promoter. He happened to network well. He happened to be very proactive. So you see, even in art, to become number one, it's a lot to do with packaging. See what happened, this India being the guest happened last year. Last year it was Brazil. In fact, I was at the Arco Fair last year, and we were a few of us sitting with this director of the art fair, and it just so happened they said, oh, why not India next year? Now, India did become the guest of honor, but unfortunately, you know, we in India, our government institutions do not really think of participation in an art fair in the way the Brazilian government did. So there was this gallery called Bodhi Art, which put in a lot of money, and he put in his own curator, Bose Krishnamachari. What Bose did was, he invited 13 galleries to put their artworks. In fact, I have written a text for the ABCD Arco Fair critiquing this, and I've called that article Many-Headed Gods and a Multi-Handed Goddess, because all the 13 galleries that were selected, it is called the Indian Panorama section, and all the 13 galleries which were selected for this were only talking of a particular kind of language of art, which is experimental and avant-garde. You know, you had to show that how intellectual and how, you know, in a way a little bit, it was a little pretentious, but it was only one aspect of Indian art being shown there. When you talk of the Indian panorama, you also have to look at what happened with popular culture, what happened with cinema. You cannot keep cinema out from the art. None of that was there. There was a gallery called Photo Inc. which was showing photography, but that was again a photography which could easily be understood only by the West. You know, so it was actually geared towards that. But yes, but having said that, it was also good because a lot of people from Europe who come there, it's one of the largest fairs, they'd never seen Indian art in one place, under one roof in that way. But it was a very watered down affair. Recession had really hit the art market, and compared to last year, it was really 1/3 of it. You know, that is a different story actually. They're a very well reputed gallery, and I talked to them, and they of course said that they were not fakes. They were some very early works of Raza. But when you, as I was saying earlier, whenever you are buying an artwork now, and one gets to know some artists whose works are being faked, first it's better to check with a restorer. Two, you must always get a certificate of authentication from the gallery when you buy the artwork. So that is a very, very important document. Never buy an artwork without the certificate of authentication, which is it's the duty of the gallery to give that to you. Any reputed gallery will not sell a work of art without a proper invoice, without a proper certificate of authentication. So, you know, all these things, these risks will be reduced. Always, I mean, the art market the world over has had fakes. There are always people who can work around it, but these are some ways in which you can, you know.
My question was relating to buying and collecting.
Yeah.
Buying and collecting not by the institutions or the art collectors, but the individuals. With particular reference to the people in northern India, more particularly to the Punjabis. The Punjabis are more fond of food and the clothes, but rarely buy any piece of art. So why is it so? Do they lack appreciation of art, or is it something else?
You know, I actually think it's a cultural thing, you know, because Punjab probably has had a greater love for land, and there is a thing about land. But if you look at, say, for example, the Parsi community, they were the ones who started buying art in a very concerted way. I will definitely not say that Punjabis don't have appreciation. They have the most beautiful homes, the most beautiful textiles. They love beauty as nobody, you know, not less than anybody else. But I think their focus is a little different. They probably feel that it's about your comfort levels. They feel better buying land or, buying fat jewels than art. But it isn't that they don't have. Many of them at the old Sardar homes have gorgeous paintings which they were done, portraits done of their ancestors. That's all part of what was there. It's just that I do think that it will take time for them to probably understand the, it's all about value. So it depends on what their tastes are at that moment. It's all about taste, culture. Like the Bengalis, however little money they'll have, they'll still go to the Adda and argue and buy work on installments. North India does not really have such a regular art buying thing. It's changing, and let me tell you, a lot of Punjabis in Delhi are buying art as if it's going out of style. So I think it's also about liquid cash.
Pandev, I have a question. I have actually two questions. You spoke about the Made in India label. Does that mean that it will be popular so long as it remains in vogue?
No, when I say a Made in India label, it is like, see, when what is it which a collector looks when they go to buy work from another land? Now, the latest today is Arab art. So it's like Enrico Navarra. When he came, he actually did a big fat book called Made in India. All the artists which were part of his collection were all Indians. No foreign artist who's painting on India also he didn't buy. For example, he didn't buy Francesco Clemente's work. He did not buy Stephen Cox's work. He didn't buy work of great international artists who have come to India and lived here and taken India as an inspiration. He bought work only by artists of Indian origin who are living in India, and their language was something which he was comfortable with. He's bought Subodh Gupta, he bought Jagannath Panda, he bought the more experimental artwork.
One very brief question again. You spoke about some of the very popular artists being very, commercially popular overseas because they had a sensibility which would appeal to the Westerners. There's one artist who's done very well also recently, that's TV Santosh, and his artwork somehow has a lot of Indian sensibility. How do you see that?
But all the other artists also have an Indian sensibility. TV Santosh, because he was picked up by a few collectors and then he doesn't produce enough. It's all about demand and supply. It's like any other business.
Yeah, how do you think that the young artists should work on the Indian themes, or they should work according to, because we are so, I just want to ask that.
I know. I understand the confusion. I see that with a lot of young people, and I see that. I think the first thing with young artists is that they must perfect the technique, whatever you're doing. And secondly, it's about honesty. Whatever you're doing, it must be done with complete honesty. Do not think about the market when you are starting. Never think about the market when you're starting. You just think of the definition of what is art. That which is new, novel, fresh. That is what you should be thinking about. A mastery over whichever medium you are doing. And for an artist, I always believe drawing is the mother of all art. And after that, whatever you take, whether it's photography, printmaking, conceptual, you always have to have your reflexive journal. And you must read a lot. You must read a lot. This is a problem which we have in India, that when a person goes to the art school, then they only concentrate on line, form, color. You must read a lot, be aware of your environment. You must have the concerns of contemporary India in your artwork, which is very, very important. It could be your concerns, it could be the concern, it could be any notion, but it has to be done in a way which is yours with absolute honesty. But you must read. Literature is very, very important for any art student, which I see many people don't read, and I see that in the class in aesthetics, I see that in the class in art history. It's very important to be in touch with your own history. Very important. If you do not know your past, you cannot become a great artist. The cultural context is very important. Very, very important.
Ma'am, what according to you needs to be done at a more basic level to allow young and perhaps more aesthetically inclined art students and aspirants to have a share in this art market? What do you think should be done at a more basic level for them to come out in the art market?
I think they should be given more places to show their work and keep it open to people. They should be encouraged to show as much as possible. There should, you can have artist run spaces, you can show anywhere. I would just say, don't show it in places where they don't give you respect. Like earlier it was, restaurant mein bhi dikha diya. There's no harm showing in restaurants. They're being shown in clubs and things, in London in particular. But show as much as you can. Show it also in places where you don't expect art to be seen. You must show work. That's the more important thing. Don't be hesitant. Don't keep waiting. Don't keep waiting कि हम group show करेंगे. जहाँ दिखा सकते हो दिखाओ, and never be scared of public rejection also. Because when you put your work in the market, you have to be prepared for criticism. I'm criticized quite a lot. It makes me feel very shitty, but then I go back again. Because that criticism helps you grow. Very important. You must show your work. And then if your work is not being accepted by the market, then you need to think. Because endorsement of the market is important for anything to survive and live. There are very few Van Goghs. He had a great brother who helped sell his work.
Ma'am, 1 hour ago, I have gone to Punjab University to watch an art exhibition. I have seen the painting of Mr. Tami. I bothered to differentiate the painting because all pictures are black and white and all are based on the field areas. So could you help me to think that how can I differentiate the painting of one painter? Because all look same.
You have to read a lot and you have to see a lot of work. Otherwise, how will you know? You have to see who are the photographers. Okay, even in Chandigarh you will have to see who are the photographers here. Or in national context you'll have to see. It's important, it's very important to see and read. And there are lots of books available now. There's no shortage. You can even go on to Google. If he's doing landscapes, you Google in landscape photographers, you'll get so much. You have the internet. Great tool for information. Maybe not for research, but information, yes.
I am thankful to the Chandigarh Lalit Kala Akademi to give me this opportunity to say a few things. So Dr. Pande wanted me to say something on aesthetics, but I found that she has touched upon the most crucial points of Indian aesthetics, whether it is traditional or contemporary or maybe even futuristic. The most important point that she struck was that it has to be appreciated that Indian art is highly conceptualized, and the concept of the creativity, if not understood, then nothing will appeal to you. And for that, as Dr. Pande suggested, you have to learn, read and also see around. And also the artists, particularly the young artists, should exhibit more and more and more. And that is the advice that has been given long time back, even by the celebrated art historian Dr. Ananda Kentish Kumaraswamy in one of his very wonderful essays entitled Why Exhibit Art. Now I also have found that she has, Dr. Pande has covered a lot about the Indian sensibility, and that is also very important. Of course, I will not say that the Western artist is not does not bear that sensibility, or that the Western art world have not cared for the conceptualized forms. Not that. I am saying what she has said is it is completely different, but that difference has to be negotiated in terms of an universality, and that is what is important, because we are thinking about buying, marketing and collecting. If that has to be there, then naturally we have to take into account the present situation of world marketing. Now, as far as the aesthetics of Indian art concerned, I think the most crucial thing is, as I learnt it long time back from one of the writings by an ancient master, and he observed, Rupena vidyate rupam. That means appearance is not all. You have to go beyond. You have to go beyond the optical sight. Then you can have the actual soul of the art. And this exactly has been repeated in a very old Buddhist text, Lalita Vistar. There also the same thing is there. It says, Rupa no hi chakshushi sankranti. That means you cannot see, observe and also comment on something unless you have that sense to know. And that is why the Vedic seers said, Dehi me chakshushe chakshu. Give me vision to my sight. Now why did he say? He said that all of us, of course, excluding myself, I have my eye problem, but most of us have got a pair of beautiful eyes with sight. You can see long distances and everything, but hardly many people have got the vision to go beyond and into it. And that is what is important, and in order to know that, one has to understand the entire situation that you are living in, not only present, also the past. I came here, as I said, to meet Dr. Pande. I don't know how many years have lapsed between the last meeting with her. I don't remember. And many people say, oh, Dr. Pande was your student, but you do not look like that. A silly comment that I have to confront many times. So I am tempted to narrate just a brief one, and a very interesting anecdote given in the Khila Harivangsha part of the Bhagavad Purana. You probably know that Lord Krishna had his schooling from the Sandipan Pathshala. His Guruji was Sandipan. Now when Lord Krishna became the king of Dwarka, then people started coming to Sandipan and saying, oh look, he has become king, he is so big, and who cares for you like that? A group of people came, as it is everywhere, mischief mongers gossiping to Sandipan, saying this. As they finished, they found that somebody standing at the doorsteps, and Sandipan raised his hand this way to give Ashirvad or something like that, and he said Namaste. And asked, how could you recognize me? Then, because after a long time we are meeting, then Lord Krishna, then Sandipan said, Ushati Riva Matara, as the mother recognizes the child, similarly the mother also recognizes, as mother recognizes the child, similarly the child also recognizes the mother. And then Sandipan looked at those mischief mongers and said, look, the sun may lose temporarily its glow and shine, the moon may change its shape, the sky may change its color, but again they come back. And this is what? The sun again becomes that glowy and shining, and the moon, full moon, and the sky with its vast blue. So this is the concept of Indian Purnata, totality, vastness. Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. So today, when I met Dr. Pande, and she spoke very nicely about me, I did not expect, I cannot expect that from many others, but I knew her. She has been a charming lady, very dignified, as all of you know, but I do not know whether you know that she is a relentless fighter against odds whatsoever will come her way, and she has that courage and boldness to fight out, and she has done that. Today, Dr. Pande is a global intellectual phenomena. I am sure that one day her glory will travel spaces, and the posterity will see the blossoms of her glory, and with that perhaps I will tag around as the humble fragrance. Thank you very much.
I'm sure everyone can see it.